Hello and welcome to Ralph's Tool Shop. Today we're going to make a Pinewood Derby. You may be saying, what is a Pinewood Derby? Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, a Pinewood Derby is a car made out of pine. That's why it's called Pinewood Derby. Many cars can look, there's a variety of shape for cars. There's this one, and it can get as extravagant as this one. It's only limited by your imagination. Now we start off with, that's right, a piece of pine, some wheels, and some nails. Let's take a closer look at that kit. Each Pinewood Derby kit contains a box, a Pinewood Derby block of wood, 4 wheels, the stickers for your numbers, 4 and sometimes 5 nails, which are your axles, and the Derby rules. For the youth Pinewood Derby, you can take these rules and throw them away, because we have special rules, and make sure you pay close attention to those. Tonight, we're going to learn how to make this Pinewood Derby car. First, we're going to cut out the wood. Next, we're going to polish the axles. Then, we'll show you a few tips on painting your car. And then we will go ahead and mount the wheels, add the weight, and you'll be ready to race. Okay, here we go. Okay, here we're going to start off with your Pinewood Derby car. As you can see, we have decided that we want the short end to be the front, and the long end here, see where the axle, the slots that are made for the axles, the nails fit in right here and hold the wheels. We've decided that we want the short end to be the front and the long end to be the back. We've gone in and we've gone ahead and drawn what we want to cut out first, which is the side. We don't want to cut this first, the top. We want to cut the side. So we've gone ahead and drawn this in. We don't want to cut next to these wheels, because that will shorten the amount of distance there that has to ride on the track. So you don't want to cut right there. But you go ahead and you can do anything you want. You can make it as small as you want. You can make it as big as you want. You can just round the block off, and that's good enough. But go ahead and draw where you want to go, and it doesn't have to be exact, because we'll go ahead and sand it off later. Now, if you decide that you want to draw it on paper first, you can go ahead and draw it on something like this. But what I discovered is that these wheels were located in the wrong place for this sheet of paper. So you may have to put your block of wood on there, draw this slot, and draw where the wheels will go, and then draw your design on paper if that's how you'd like to go. Okay, here we go. Okay, now before we use the power tool, you got to remember safety first. So we use safety glasses, right? Protect these eyes. And if need be, if you're going deaf like I am, you might want ear protection. In addition to that, keep the fingers clear. Never get the fingers closer than this far from the blade. Be really careful to make sure your fingers don't get caught in the blade. Alright, let's go ahead and cut out the car. Okay, there we go. You can see we've got the rough shape. We've got it cut out. It's starting to look like a car, isn't it? Now, if you decide that you'd like to round the corners, you can either cut that on the bandsaw and go ahead and draw that in this way. And then we could cut it out on the bandsaw that way. Or we could go over to the sander. And the sander might have a little more control. So go ahead and use the sander. Now, if you don't have a power sander, you can just use a sandpaper sandpaper with your hand and round this up as you like. But if you've got access to a belt sander or to a disc sander, it'll still speed things up a bit. Let's go ahead and take a look at that. Yeah. As you can see, it's starting to take shape. Now you can notice that the sander, the power sander, takes this wood off in a hurry. So you have to be real careful or you'll sand too far. It might be time for us now to go ahead and use a hand sander. You know how to hand sand, but we'll go ahead and show you a little bit anyway. When you're hand sanding, you can either use a block that makes it easier to hold. And you can see that we have a lot more control there and we can get a lot smoother. And so, as you get down towards the finer shape of your car, you're going to want to use a hand sander. And if you got places where you need to get into little corners, you can go ahead and just take a piece of sandpaper and sand it like that. Alright, we're going to go ahead and cut off now for a while and go ahead and sand it up on our own. Take your time. It'll make the difference between a good car and a not so good car. But after you finish sanding it, go ahead and paint it. Paint it however you want. We're not going to paint it here tonight. Paint it with spray paint. Paint it with puff paint. Paint it with fingernail polish. It doesn't matter. Just paint it. And the next step we're going to go to is polishing the axles. Okay. These nails here are your axles, and they may look pretty shiny right now, but if you look up close, right underneath the head of the nail, you may have to grab one of your own, there's little ridges underneath there, and if you don't get those ridges off, the ridges right underneath here, if you don't get those ridges off, it'll rub on the wheels and slow your car down. So we're going to show you how to polish those wheels, those axles, and get them nice and smooth. Alright, here we go. Alright, now onto the axles. Like I said, we want to remove the little nicks here. We also want to smooth these up. Even though they look pretty smooth, there's a lot that we can do to them. So, we take this, each nail, mount it into the chuck of the drill. You can see that the wheel would go on this far. So we want to make sure that the axle, that we're going to polish the width, at least the width of the wheel. So, we'll start off like that. Go ahead and start the drill and lock it. Then we'll take the file and hold it up, and what we're doing, we're pushing it against the head. And it doesn't hurt to taper the head just a little bit. And you take a good look at it and make sure that all of the nicks are gone. You can see that it's hard to see from the camera there, but if you take a look at it, you can see that we got rid of the little nick there. So now we're ready to go on to some finer sandpaper. So you can either take regular 250 grit wet sanding paper, or you can take emery cloth and cut it into real thin strips like this, and we'll go ahead and start it up again. We also want to get on the head. A little bit of water or saliva helps to polish it. Go ahead and clean that off. You can see we're starting to shine it up. And as you look really close, you can kind of tell that now, as we've shined it, we might have found a nick underneath there. So by polishing, we've actually helped to see that there really were some rough edges under there. After you've done the 250 grit, then you can go on to a finer grit, which is like a 400 or even down to a 600. Get it nice and smooth. Here we go. That's looking pretty good. Now from there, if you wanted to, you could get polishing stone or some pumice. You could even use Comet cleanser, which would tend to polish it. You could polish those up a little bit more, but they've actually got quite a bit smoother. So you go ahead and do that to each of your axles. Next, for your wheels, we'll just do one axle now, but just for your wheels, there's a lot that you can do to your wheels. A lot of them take a lot of time, but there's a few simple things that you can do to your wheels to make them run better. First is to see if there's any sharp pieces of plastic sticking out on the inside or on the outside of the wheel. Also on this part of the wheel, you could take a piece of sandpaper, very fine sandpaper, not rough, but like 600 grit or 500 grit, and smooth that out. Now although you might say to yourself, the shiny part has gone away, actually you're smoothing it up because you're getting rid of little bumps that might slow it down, especially right on this ridge here where there's these bumpy things. Go ahead and clean that off with a little piece of really fine sandpaper. And once again, if you want to add a little bit of water to it, it'll help polish it. Then go ahead on the inside here too, just very carefully take this and round off this edge just a little bit so it doesn't have a sharp edge on it. And then here too if you need to. We'll go ahead and take our axle off. We'll just go ahead and spin it. Look at the way that spins. Now let's see if there's a difference. We'll take one of the nails that hasn't been done. See how that slows down a little bit faster? I hope you can tell. That's because it still has these ridges on it. So polish each and every one of your wheels and get them ready. And then what you might want to do is take graphite, put a little bit of graphite in there, put it back in the drill like this, add the graphite to the wheel, and then very carefully run the drill. This will rub the graphite into the plastic. Now don't go too fast or you'll melt your wheel, but just enough to rub the graphite right into the actual plastic of the wheel. That'll help it go faster too. Alright, the next step we're going to do, I'm going to show you how to add weight to your car. There's a lot of ways to put lead into your car, which is what you want. You want your car to weigh the maximum weight. With the youth Pinewood Derby, we've upped the weight from the normal 5 ounces to 7 ounces. 7 ounces is a lot of lead. In fact, 7 ounces is about what 1 cubic inch of lead weighs. 1 inch by 1 inch by 1 inch. And your wheels and your Pinewood Derby car together probably weigh about 1 ounce to 1.5 ounces to 2 ounces, depending upon how much wood you've taken from your car and just how hard your wood is. Some wood weighs a little bit more than others. So we've got to add about 5 ounces of lead, which is quite a bit of lead. And you can do this in a number of ways. You can use everything from fishing sinkers, make a little man with his head going down the track. You can make a headlight or an engine, whatever you'd like, using fishing weights. If you find some other weights, you can use something like that. You can do this by gluing this to your car. You can drill a hole and screw it to your car. Or, if you'd like, if you want to hide that and have this outside nice and smooth, you can drill into the bottom of your car and either glue the weights into the bottom, or actually, as we've done here, we have a whole bunch of lead here. And we put the lead in here, put it on a stove, and you wouldn't want to do this without an adult nearby because this gets really hot and you have to be very, very careful. You probably use a smaller can, maybe even do it outside with a camp stove. But you can melt it and actually pour the hot lead into your car. If you do this, you want to do it for sure before you paint your car. If you do it after you painted your car, the heat will melt your paint and it will really ruin your car. It's probably best to go ahead and add your weight before, or at least have an idea of how much you want to add to your car before you paint it anyway. And so use a scale. Since you don't know exactly what the scale is like at the Pinewood Derby race, which will be the official scale, get it close to 7 ounces, maybe just a little bit under, and then bring some quarters or some little bit of lead that you can add to the top of it so you can get it right on. So let's say we decided that we're going to use this and we want to put this in the car. We could drill holes in the side here, almost all the way through, cut off pieces of lead, put it in there, and then put a little piece of doweling on the top, glue it in there, and sand it off and get it nice and smooth and you never see it. The secret to placing your weight is, most people say, you want it towards the back of your car. You've got to have enough weight to keep your car on the track, so you don't want it too light. You can see this car here, it pops a wheelie too easy, and that's what it ended up doing going down the track. It didn't have enough weight on the front of the car. It had too much in the back. Where this one probably had just about the right amount. You can see that there's a lot of weight here. And you see there, this is where we drilled holes out in the bottom. We melted the lead and we poured it in. That's what we did here too. You can't see it very well, The lead goes right here and right here. Okay. So make your decision, decide where you want to do it. Go ahead and drill it. Let's say we were going to add this using lead that we were going to pour in. So we decided we want to cut some of it in the back behind the axle. Stay about at least a 1/4 inch away from your axle so you don't mess it up. We'll go ahead and go right there. Be really careful you don't come out the other side of your car. That really hurt you. That there is probably not quite enough. We probably would have to, with this car design, drill a little bit deeper in the back, a little bit more here, maybe even drill some more lead here, and then what we do is we would melt it and pour it in and let it actually grab in there. And then if it falls out, which it sometimes does because the lead shrinks as it cools, we go ahead after it's all cooled and everything, if they fall out, put some glue in there and pop it back in. If you've got too much lead in, you can do what we did here and drill it back out. Okay, now let's go on to the final step. Let's say that you finish this all up, you have lead inside, you've sanded this really smooth, and you've got it all painted nice and smooth. And you've decided now you're ready to put your axles on and your wheels. Go ahead and take this, carefully push your axle into the car. Now you can see right here the axle went up this way, so we've got to find a little screwdriver or something to push it down straight. And then go ahead and use something, tap that in there. You want about that much space, about a 1/16 of an inch space, so this wheel can roll nice and smooth. And if it's not straight, like I said, just use this to push it down in. After it's in and after you've got your wheels all on, I recommend that you use a little bit of epoxy glue or Elmer's glue, but be very, very careful that you don't get any glue back in here touching your wheels. We'll go ahead and shut the camera off now while we put all the wheels on. We decided we might want to show you one more thing. Notice that this side, it's easy to put the wheels on because you can pound on it and it goes against the block. Pull it out a little bit more. Push this in there. Let's see where the other wheels go. Well, what do you do when you get to this side? If you smash it this way, you could break your wheels. So what you do, you take a piece of wood or a corner of a table, put it over the corner of a table like this. So a lot of the weight is still going into the car. Put it on. There you go. And like before, take a good look at it. Push it down in. Take your last wheel. Push it in good. Now you get there and you say, oh dear, one of my wheels don't touch. That's what you want. A fast car will only have 3 wheels touching. That way this wheel isn't having to roll as you go down the track, but it still keeps it on the track. So you should have, like this one has, one wheel that rides just a little bit high. If all your wheels touch, go ahead and play with it until one wheel doesn't touch. Well, that's about all for tonight. Have fun, be creative, Do anything you want. If you have any questions, give myself a call. Give any of your leaders a call. This Pinewood Derby race is going to be a lot of fun. If you need help, holler. Come on over and I'll help you. Okay, that's all, folks. Ladies and gentlemen, let me show you our director, producer, and film editor, Terry Simpson, my neighbor. Thanks, Terry.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.